Hey, welcome back to Intimate Encounters with Adam.
Samantha.
And today, oh my gosh, we are both so excited. This is going to be such an amazing episode. We've got a watcher of the podcast and a friend, Mike, with us here, who is a photographer, but also films pornography. Woo! So we're gonna ask him all about that. We have like so many questions, and yeah, I guess let's just dive right into it. Mike, could you tell us like how did you break into this?
Hello everyone, by the way. As Adam and Samantha have mentioned, my name's Michael. I started off as a photographer some 20 years ago now, and doing the general kind of photography situations of taking portraits and products, and worked for Selfridges for some time. But I was approached by a lady that wanted a bikini shoot for a calendar. She was I believe the winner of the 2002 lap dancing competition in Venezuela or something like that. And lovely lady, as you can imagine. But she approached me for this bikini shoot, and I did a calendar. And at the end of the shoot, she asked me if it was possible for her and her boyfriend to do some nude shoots. And obviously, because I'm there, because the camera's there, because the camera's got, it wasn't necessarily a no-brainer. It was definitely something that, excuse me, definitely something that I could do, and they were up for it. So was I, and it was the first exposure to that kind of world, shall we say?
Okay.
And it started to take off from there. She led me to another couple of contacts that wanted a few different things doing. I then realised that was a good leg to my business. Because there's going to be so many double entendres in this.
Yeah, like a third leg.
So yeah, it was a different leg to my business, and I couldn't say no. It was it was tempting, and it started to take off gradually. It's obviously something that because I'm also a photographer and work for companies that wouldn't see this as necessarily appropriate, then it's something that I have to keep separate from what I do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still something that needs doing. It's still something that people want doing, and it's something that I can do. So and so I do, and that's where it all started.
And so you started with taking photographs. Like, how did you gradually get into actual filming? Because it sounded like you were more of a photographer, so you're actually doing the filming of porno?
Well, the lady that led me to another couple of contacts that came my way, she started off, she wanted some skills doing, but then she asked the question whether I could do videography as well. At the time, it wasn't necessarily something that I had the equipment for.
Yes.
There's another one.
I think we start a running tally of how many we we're at two.
Ping. Yeah. So I decided that was something that I was going to look into, and then kind of called her back when I updated my equipment and managed to get the things that I needed to do in order to provide this lady with the service that she wanted. Mm-hmm. And then the videography took off, and it's also something that was expanding with. I do music videos, corporate videos, and things like that. So it's something that kind of added on, and I saw it as an opportunity to be able to get into an area whereby I hadn't necessarily got into before. Mm-hmm. We're still talking about 20 years ago, so it's kind of evolved from there. So yeah, it was a contact that I had from the first lady that did the stills, that wanted the videography doing, that I had to adapt to.
Mm.
So it sounds like you're mostly like taping couples, or are you taping different types of photography? Like what types have you had experience?
It's so in essence, basically, it's people that come to me that want to spice up their relationships and kind of do something that they wouldn't necessarily do, find something that they have to kind of evolve out of their comfort zone from, and they kind of come to me, they contact me through the mediums that I advertise through, and they tend to have a little bit of a chat, and the experience of what they get from their situation and from their filming is the kind of what the aspect of getting towards beefing up their relationships and their sex lives and so on. But there's also a lot of other situations where there's companies that produce pornography and produce films that come to me as well, just to sit behind the camera and just to do what they would necessarily do that they can't do for other freelancers. So I tend to move towards that as well.
And do you have a preference over like which one you prefer?
I do, but it's not necessarily something that you can limit yourself to.
Yeah.
In my particular opinion, money's money, filming is filming. I sit there and I'll point the camera at anything, and if it doesn't get me arrested, then I'm all good.
I think that's going to be the tagline for this show. Wow.
Okay, so I'm curious. Okay, when you go into a room with a couple,
yes,
like are you just stationed there in the corner? Like I'm just imagining like it's kind of like weird and I don't know, like it's this intimate thing, right? Or like are you getting up like really close and doing like specific angles?
Yeah.
Do you move around? What's like? Yeah.
Well, the couples coming to me and they sometimes have a specific idea of what they want and what they want to get out of this particular experience. I also have my ideas and what I would like to do in order for them to get the best result and the best product of what I can offer. So we have this little kind of consultation beforehand. I'll run through the set. Sometimes it's quite complex and there's different aspects to the set and so on. But the majority of the time, it's about getting them relaxed in order for them to be the best that they can be, to come across. That was an unintentional double entendre, by the way. The best to come across on camera. And just kind of getting them in that relaxed atmosphere whereby they're willing to do what they express to do in the consultation. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they kind of back down and they don't want to necessarily be doing what they intentionally decided to do. Sometimes they come across and they get a bit shy. With general performers that are getting paid for pornography and getting paid to do what they do, they just get into it and there's no consultation process. They just kind of realise what they've got to do. The director said, this is what's going to happen, this is how it's going to be. But to all intents and purposes, with my specific clients, they have to have that little conversation first about what their limits are, what they want to do, what kind of film they want to see at the end of it. If you get my drift.
Yep. On that note, I think it's interesting. It seems like there is quite a stark difference then between like couples and pros, which I wouldn't say I'm like super surprised by. Yeah. But how do you? One thing I'm interested in is how you view the creation process. Do you view it as like like you're creating a piece of art, or is it just like getting a paycheck?
It's kind of both, if I'm honest, Adam. I do get paid. I do get paid for it. I make no mistake about admitting to that. But obviously, I want to be able to create something that people want to watch and people get enjoyment out of watching. It's obviously a completely different scenario with making a feature film. obviously, it's not a limited audience. You know, that kind of world has a vast audience from all generations, all genres, and for anybody that says that they don't, then I'm sorry, but you're lying. But in my opinion, it's got to be watchable. It's got to be visually exciting, and it has to have some kind of art in a way. To paraphrase you, Adam, it's something that's got to be a very visual stimulation experience. And if it's not, then I've not done a good job.
And would you say then you have like some specific moves or specific like touches that you like to add to your films?
I try to be as artistic as I can. I try to bring something different, especially in the editing process. I try to do, and I'll send you some links later if that's okay.
Yeah.
Separately, obviously, not watch them together. But I try to tend to do things a little bit, or try to put as much into it differently as possible. There's so many people and so many producers out there and so many directors that have done things that have led to be completely different. And there's a producer called Dear Lamb that does things in such an artistic way that it doesn't look like pornography. It looks like a feature film. But I tend to try and put that touch on it with lighting and editing and camera angles and things like that, and try to, as much as I can, especially with people that come as a couple, to try to put a spin on it where it is quite intimate and as artistic as possible. Even though between takes there's the difficulties of them getting to grips with what they're doing. There's another one. But yeah, just trying to make sure that the end result is as the end result is as fluid as possible. I just can't stop myself.
Are we mature enough to host like this podcast, Sam? I'm not sure.
But now it's
the guy. I'm not sure.
But it boils down to what people actually want at the end of it, and my role and my position is to be able to make sure that they have an experience while they're there, but also a very good result in the product that they receive. Because at the end of the day, they're paying for it. So if they're not happy with the product they receive, then again, I haven't done my job right. It's like photographing a wedding. If the wedding couple hasn't received what they expected and what they wanted by doing what they had to do throughout that day, then my job has been, I haven't done my job right. So I do try to incorporate as much artistic processes as possible, as well as making sure that they're comfortable in doing what they do.
For sure. That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to ask. So you sound like you're like super professional about everything, but has there ever been a time where you've crossed the line between professional and personal? As in, have you ever gotten down to any of your clients?
Where I have crossed the line.
Yeah.
Actually, also, you have a story about the other part, so maybe vice versa as well.
But firstly, in order to answer that question, Samantha, have I ever crossed the line? Can you first define what the line is?
Well, I guess what I'm really trying to just ask is, say that a couple invited you to film their set. Have you ever joined in? Or have you ever, gotten a fluff on set? have you ever joined in before or after a shoot? So yeah, I've never fucked, like.
Only when I'm specifically asked to do.
Ooh.
Only when you're asked to.
Yeah, if people approach me, and obviously they come to my studio and they come to the locations that we provide, and some people are up for it, some people aren't, some people have to get out of their comfort zone, some people have to reduce their inhibitions. But at the end of the day, if people want to extend that particular experience, whether it be with me or, then fair play. I think, in essence, the answer to your question, Samantha, is yes.
Okay.
Wow.
It's extra to the particular contract that they've signed into, but you can't, in this day and age, especially being an adult, especially being a human being, once you're tasked with an opportunity and you see that opportunity is beneficial to yourself, then fair play, go for it. You're not here for a long time, you're here for a good time, as people might say.
Yeah.
Like, would you consider that an add-on service?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, no. I don't charge for it. I don't charge for that.
I totally thought that's what you were saying. I thought you were like, look, we've agreed on this, but like my dick's an extra like 20% on top, extra 20% on top of this dick. Okay?
No, that's a complete freebie. Yeah, and it doesn't affect the deposit. Ding.
Wow.
Okay, so speaking of cum shots,
yeah,
we had okay.
Were we?
We are now. We are now.
So, when you're watching a porno and there's like the cum shot on the face, it's just like they're all just somehow magically just like coming all over her face at the same time. Like, how does that work? Like, how does it work? Like, do they stop? Is it like when one guy gets down, he just comes on his her face so that like a block comes out like the first one, and they keep going, or what's happening? What's happening?
Tell us.
It depends on the actual assignment. Obviously, with a couple and they're getting into it, they can't necessarily stop and kind of like do another take or so on. But let's say in the instance of a group session where there's a lady with maybe 2 or 3 men, there'll be a situation whereby off camera, the idea is to get a close up. So you kind of close up onto the action. You close up on the lady's face and you close up onto the guy's box and so on. So off camera, the first guy that's starting to get close, he'll put his hand up, and then obviously you'll focus on that. So these today you don't miss it. Obviously, the one thing you don't want to do as a porn cameraman is miss a cum shot, especially on a lady that's going to be surprised by it, shall we say. She's not expecting it. So he'll put his hand up, or he'll wink at the camera, or he'll give some kind of nod, so that you know that he's first, and then you can kind of focus on that. Sometimes there's a situation where there's two cameras, two cameramen, so you don't necessarily miss anything. Some guys will put their hands up twice, or the lady will put her hand up and she's ready for orgasming and so on. And it's all about looking about what's going on behind the camera, as opposed to kind of focusing down the lens as well. They're both in a way. So yeah, it's kind of a situation of signals and hand maneuvers, or even like a shoulder twitch or something like that they'll give you as an indication of what's appertaining, shall we say.
Mm. And do these guys, you said there, they might put their hand up like twice. Are these guys like coming multiple times?
No. I kind of probably didn't explain that well, but one guy will put his hand up at the same time as another guy, so you've got two hands up.
Yeah.
Whereby you've got the kind of like rely on the second cameraman to manoeuvre in, so that you've got one of each, shall we say, all focused on the ladies. It's all about the lady's face at the end of the day, you know. It's the focus of the attention, as we all jolly well know.
Yeah. Wow. And what's like, you know, and there's so many people there, it sounds like, what's the like camaraderie like between everyone? Is it like a normal work day, like, all right, Bob, like, how's the kids? Or yeah, what's that like?
A cup of coffee.
Yeah.
It just starts off like that. It just starts off with a bit of a general conversation beforehand, and especially with people that kind of, with performers that come back time and time again, regular performers that get paid regularly for doing what they do, and you'll know them as friends, you'll know them as colleagues, shall we say, but you'll also know their lives. You'll know what they do on a regular day-to-day basis outside of what they do with filming. So you kind of have that little conversation first, but then it all gets down to the nitty-gritty of, you know, this is what the director wants to do. This is how he's going to try and pan it out. Doesn't necessarily work out like that, because as you can imagine, a lot of people that get filmed for doing pornography are in the moment, and they're in the zone. You can't necessarily. They have to enjoy what they do at the end of the day. They have to enjoy their work life, and you can't necessarily interrupt that unless you absolutely have to. Yeah. But when on set, it's a completely different kettle of fish. Nobody's friends, nobody is colleagues. They're all kind of just like focusing on what they're doing, trying not to get interrupted, but at the same time trying to maximise and maintain the information that they've been given and the instructions that have been given from the director. If that makes sense.
Totally.
So, like, how long does it take? So, like, say like an hour-long porno. How long can that take to actually make IRL in real life? To produce an hour-long scene. Yeah.
Or of different scenes.
Yeah, just like the output of it, because like, I mean, there's so many, like, in the porn that I watch, there's a lot of different angles, and when it's all pieced together, I mean, it kind of feels fluid, but like it's clear that like this was probably taken in a bunch of different shots, maybe over multiple days. I don't really know. Because it's just like there's no way that girl can get pounded like for an hour straight at that room. Like not possible. So like
that's completely true. And there's got to be breaks in between. There's got to be situations where people have to kind of relax a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily say days. I would say hours. It's kind of like in a working day. It'll take, for an hour scene, 60 minutes of scenery. 60 minutes of footage. You're looking at anything between 9 and 12 hours of filming and breaks and things in between, situations that arise. Ping, there's another one.
Yeah.
Or situations that don't arise. But yeah, anything between 9 and 12 hours. Because it's when you've got something like that to do, you've got 60 minutes of footage to get to kind of piece together as a scene. Then you have to have an end product. You have to have something that is wanted by the directors and the people that you're paying to do it. So you have to make sure that it's done. And you kind of have to go back to the beginning sometimes, and you have to kind of reshoot and try to do things differently in a certain situation, and make sure that it all pieces together in the format that people have asked you to do it in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can take anything up to 12, I've been on set sometimes for 16 hours, and it's quite an arduous task. Not just for me. I'll just stand there and I'll press a button and kind of make sure everything's in focus and make sure I'm in the right place. But for the people performing,
sure.
It's completely. It's like work. It's not like a relationship. It's not intimate. It's not something that people necessarily sometimes enjoy either.
Yeah.
And it's not work. It's going to work. It's going to make sure that you do something through that day that makes sure that you get paid for it, whether it be making nuts and bolts or whether it be, riding some guy's knob for 12 hours.
I can't even imagine how sore I would be. Like, I can't even. like how?
Insane.
Like, pussy of steel.
It's I say that in a kind of like a derogatory way, I suppose, but it's not like that because throughout the day, it's 12-hour day, sometimes a 16-hour day, but it's all broken up into different sections. Sometimes there'll be other girls that come in for different scenes. There'll be other performers that come in to do different bits and pieces. So it's not like it's all about kind of nobbing and shagging for 12 hours. Yeah. It's about creating that performance. And sometimes girls and sometimes guys as well are kind of offset for an hour at a time, relaxing or, doing something else, sitting on Facebook or whatever it is. It kind of desexualizes the pornography a lot. If people knew what went on behind the scenes as opposed to what was in front of the camera, then it's completely different. It's like your own relationships. It's like, especially some of mine, where you're in the moment and you're having a nice time, and the phone will ring or somebody will knock at the door. So you've got to stop and you've got to try and come up with some way of gaining that intimacy back after an hour's break or 30 minutes break or so on. And that's a regular occurrence. That's kind of like part of what people do as performers.
Mm. Yeah. On that note of then, like desexualizing everything and it being more like a routine thing, from your perspective, you like enjoy watching what you're filming? Are you like turned on by it? What's going through your body when you are doing it?
Sometimes I am, not necessarily while I'm stood there filming. Certainly sometimes when the editing process comes into play, and a lot of the time I'll lock myself away while I'm editing. But on set it's different. It's a process of creating a product, and it's a process of creating something that people have expected and wanted you to do. Obviously, there's times where I'm filming and I'm on set, and I do get aroused and I do get that particular excitement, and it's inevitable. Put yourself in that position, Adam. Could you imagine that you were doing my job and
soft as anything, literally inches away from you? Yeah.
Well, that's it. You see, you say that, and sometimes you have to get as close as they are. You have to get as intimate as they are.
Yeah.
And although you're the cameraman, although you're the guy that's filming, you're there. You're kind of experiencing the aromas and noises, shall we say, and you're just as much into it and in it as they are, even though you wouldn't necessarily be there if they were in a relationship and creating that special moment, and they're looking down at the end of the bed and thinking, "What the fuck's that? What's he doing with his camera? Pissed off."
Speaking of like fluids and smells, have you ever gotten anything on you? Like, have you ever gotten like juice or cum or something like some kind of sweat?
Not on me. On my the word equipment is going to be the double entendre of the day, I think. But yes,
yeah,
certainly on my equipment, not my personal equipment, but my bodily equipment, but my professional equipment. And I have had to sanitize down after a scene on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
But that's also that's my bad. That's because what I want to do is I want to capture that particular moment. And if I'm in the way, then I've done a bad job.
Yeah.
Because I haven't filmed it as a scene for the particular movie that I was making. Mm-hmm. So if I'm in the way and I get covered, then that's down to me. I should have been somewhere else from a different angle, shall we say. But yeah, it does happen. It happens when you least expect it. It happens when even when you're told it's going to happen. It still happens, and you have to react quickly, even though you don't want to miss any of the footage.
Wow. Okay. Unless you have a follow-up question to that, I wanted to bring it to, in terms of different varieties of porn. So we're just on it. We've just got that connection. In terms of different things you film, so there's some porn, obviously, like I would prefer to watch porn that I enjoy, and there's some porn I watch and I'm like, this is difficult to see like a Pornhub little like 10-second clip of, let alone watching it, let alone actually being there and filming it. So can you talk through some like weird things, or maybe that's the wrong word.
I think like types, like
different
types,
sure,
like you know, gay, BDSM, like fetishes in general. Like what different types of?
I think that from my point of view, it boils down to your own personal limitations. Performers have their limitations, and they make those known even before you even get in contact with them. For me, I also have my own limitations. I won't do water sports. I won't do anything of a toilet nature.
Yeah.
A bit of kinky S&M isn't out of bounds. Kind of like gay porn I've filmed before as well, but there's a limit on the things that I will do, shall we say, as there is with the performers as well. There is a whole absolute world of filth out there, and there's things that even I, as I'm looking through and experiencing, and as many men do, enjoying porn, but there's things that I don't necessarily like, and I will skip through, and I won't even consider filming that. There's limits onto the amount that performers will do as well. So if I was to be contacted to do a very kinky, a very kind of out of the box kind of scene, then the performers aren't there to do it because they have their limitations as well. So I know what the limits are for me personally, but there are obviously no limits as to what you can actually see out there, and it's completely down to the people that are involved in it. Some people will do anything. Some people do absolutely anything, but that's not me. That's not what I do.
And is that because just of personal preference, or do like morals come into it at all for you?
Definitely morals. I was brought up quite well, and morally, there's things that just aren't allowed. There's things that aren't necessarily doable or acceptable, in my opinion. Some would say that pornography is not acceptable in the first place, but I disagree. As long as it's it's done in a way where people enjoy it and people get the satisfaction from it, and fair play. But I think that morally there's a lot of things. It limits me as a businessman, but sometimes you've got to limit yourself in business. People that run businesses all over the place have their limits as to what they want to do, clients they want to work with, and it relates to our industry as well.
For sure. What do you think of like the way that females are treated in the porn industry and what you've seen? That it exploits women? Do you think?
I think that the majority of people would see a lady or a female performer in a porn film as demoralised and kind of sexualised. But if you were to see them on set, then that's a completely different kettle of fish. That's what they do for a living. That's what they want to do. That's what they're paid to do. That's what they've chosen to do. And a lot of them have their limits. Like I say, that they won't do anything that they don't necessarily want to do. And fair play to them for that. So I think that some scenes come across as a bit derogatory to women, but as long as they've agreed to that, and a lot of what you see in kind of like the regular porn industry is agreed beforehand. And whether a performer will do anal or whether a performer wants to be jizzed in the face by 10 men, then that's not something that's forced upon her. That's something that she's agreed to do before the camera's even switched on.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people they don't necessarily understand that at the time, because their focus isn't necessarily on whether that girl's agreed to that. Their focus is on the end result, shall we say.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all down there. And sometimes, a lot of the time, 90% of the time, it's all down on paper as well. It's all down on a contract. It's all down on a document, which also kind of adds to the desexualisation of the product and the film. And yeah, I actually respect a lot of ladies that are agreeing to film scenes in pornography. I actually respect a lot of what they do. They are very, very ballsy in their approach to what they do. They won't necessarily. I just realised what I said. They don't necessarily. Even to the point where they're the ones that call the shots. They won't necessarily work with actors that they don't want to. They won't work with performers that they don't want to. And a lot of the time, they'll also kind of sit with me for 10 minutes or a quarter of an hour and say, "Don't get me from this angle. Don't get me from that angle." And they're quite the powerhouses of the industry. The guys are great. They'll just sit there and they'll just bang away for as long as they are instructed to, or as long as they can, and grab the check and bugger off. But a lot of the ladies are very forthcoming with what they will do, what they won't do, and making sure that they are portrayed in the way that they want to be as a performer.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I think that was such a cool. I think it started off with when you were describing it with the couples. I'm not exactly sure what I felt coming into this, but I definitely didn't think like porn filming as like when you're doing it with a couple to like enhance their relationship.
Yeah.
I think that's like a really big thing actually now.
It is, but
go on. Sorry.
It also has its drawbacks, like I say, because they come into it with the intentions of doing something completely intimate and beautiful, but they still have their little problems and they still have their little kind of gaps in between it. And it's like anybody, when you get together with someone, I was watching your podcast the other day or a couple of days ago about the can't remember the guy's name, but he got the beard.
Oh,
and
Dave.
you were talking about you were talking about your experiences, and a lot of that kind of rang true with me about what I do behind the camera. And it's all great, and it's all kind of it's all good at the particular time. But when something crops up that doesn't necessarily want to be filmed or want to be taped, then you've got to step back and you've got to reassess that. It's not like that in the bedroom. You know, if you have to reassess something, you just kind of flip her over and give it another hold. You know what I mean? But it's not like that in front of the camera for these people, and behind the camera, it's something completely different. You've got to be the one that says, okay, if you don't want to do it that way, try doing it this way, or try doing it in a completely different scenario, and start again and kind of refresh what you were thinking. But the end result is the fact that they have a film to watch. They have a kind of like a memory of what they were like. It's like boudoir and doudoir. Have you heard of doudoir? It's the same kind of thing. When people want to enhance their relationships, enhance their sexual experiences, they'll do that in film or photo form.
Okay. Cool. Sorry, we're starting to get some noise out here.
Like a tractor's just like pulling away.
He's like, So we're thinking this might actually be a good time to wrap up, because now I'm just really distracted, and I think that it's now I have something to entertain outside my house. Watch this tractor go back and forth. And yeah, it was. I just wanted to say, like, thank you so much for coming on our show. For talking about this. Like, I had no idea, like, I mean, I don't think a lot of us will have had any idea what goes on a porn set and like what it's like. And I think this is super fascinating. Yeah. And I think
has it been beneficial for you both? Has it been beneficial for the podcast, or would there have been anything else that you would have asked differently?
I think we asked all of the questions that we were thinking about before. Like,
we wrote them down, and then I feel like you've even answered like some that we didn't even think of.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of like how like the girls are like the powerhouses, the intimacy between the couples, like the kind of camaraderie between everyone. Like, this was so great. Like, thank you so much, Mike, for coming on.
Yeah.
And
no worries.
So like forthright about everything. Like, really, really cool. I certainly learned a lot. We certainly learned a lot, and I think everyone watching will as well.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're building up to the fuck off toll-free. We've had enough.
Oh, yeah. Fuck up, dude.
Fuck up. It's time to shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck
up.
I really appreciate your time, and thank you very much for inviting me on.
I was being a bit too Canadian about it. So there's a tractor.
Yeah. He's being polite.
It's not often.
No.
So.
But yeah, we actually, those of you who are watching, we actually pre-agreed that that's how we would say at the end.
Yeah.
Time to shut the fuck up.
Time to shut the fuck up.
And then that's how we're going to end the show.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mike, again for coming on. Boom. Now, thank you for watching. If you want more of this, please subscribe, join our Facebook group.
Comment. Let us know if you want to come on our show.
Yes.
We'd love to have you.
Yes.
We talk about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything to do with humans and fluids and relationships and,
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, and if you're watching...
Thank you very much, guys.
Wait one
sec. And if you're watching this and you're free on Wednesday, get ready for a Facebook Live for the ages promo.
It's going to be amazing. Amazing. Every Wednesday. 2 p.m. UK time, 4 p.m. Bansko local time. We'll figure it out. It's all good. Okay. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.